The ad seemed like a joke. It was buried in the classified section of a dusty, near-forgotten newspaper, folded on a cafe counter as if fate had placed it directly in front of him. Old cabin for sale. 50 cents. Remote. Buyer must collect deed in person. That was it. No picture. No address beyond a P.O. box. Most people would have laughed, rolled their eyes and turned the page. But John, a 32-year-old mechanic worn down by the grind of late nights and oil-stained mornings, found himself circling the ad with a red pen as if it had whispered his name. He had no plan, no reason, just a gnawing hunger to escape the monotony of his life. 50 cents for a cabin. Even if it was nothing but a rotting shack in the woods, what did he have to lose? 2 weeks later, he was bouncing down a dirt road that seemed to unravel endlessly into the forest. The deed had come in the mail, yellowed paper with ink that smelled of mildew. Lot 7, Brookpine Hollow. Deed transferred in full. The signature at the bottom was little more than a scratch, barely legible. He'd expected some kind of trick, some catch. But the county clerk had confirmed it. The property was real. Now with his pickup rattling over potholes and the daylight bleeding orange through the pines, John began to regret not asking more questions. The cabin was waiting for him at the end of the path, slumped like a drunk leaning against the trees. Its roof sagged, shingles curling like dead leaves. The windows were dark, one cracked, another covered by a warped plank nailed haphazardly. The porch groaned under his boots as he climbed the steps, each board flexing as though it resented the weight of a stranger. A rusty horseshoe hung on the door, upside down. Bad luck, he thought grimly. He twisted the knob. It opened too easily. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of hay, mold, and something coppery that clung to the back of his throat. The floorboards were coated with straw, scattered as if someone had once kept animals here. Old tools rusted against the walls, sickle, saw, hammer, all dulled with time. He moved cautiously, flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. In one corner, a trapdoor peeked out from under a mound of hay, the ring handle barely visible. His pulse kicked. A basement, out here? He hesitated, the silence pressing heavy against his ears. Then he shoved the hay aside, fingers curling around the iron ring. The hinges screamed as he pulled it open, the sound like a wounded animal echoing in the dark. A narrow set of steps disappeared into blackness. "Great," he muttered, forcing bravado into his voice. 50 cents well spent. The smell grew stronger as he descended, each creak of the stairs threatening collapse. His flashlight revealed stone walls, damp and weeping. It wasn't a basement so much as a cellar, carved crudely into the earth. The floor was packed dirt, uneven, littered with more hay. Chains dangled from the wall, iron links thick as his thumb. He froze. These weren't for livestock. The cuffs were too small, too deliberate. Then he saw her. At first he thought it was a bundle of rags tossed into the corner. But as his light shifted, the rags moved, shuddering. A pale face peeked out, streaked with dirt, hair matted into ropes. Her eyes snapped open, wide, hollow, and burning with a terror that pierced him to his core. She was shackled to the wall, wrists bound by iron cuffs, ankles chained, her skin raw where the metal bit deep. John stumbled back, heart hammering. Jesus Christ. The woman opened cracked lips, and a sound like sandpaper rasped out. "Please." Her voice was brittle, nearly gone, but the plea was clear. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to slam the trapdoor shut and pretend none of this existed. But his legs carried him forward, crouching by her side. Up close he could see the bruises layered on her arms, the way her breath rattled shallowly, the faint tremble of someone balanced on the edge of life and death. "Who did this to you?" he whispered, tugging at the chain. It was bolted deep into the stone, unmoving. Her eyes flicked upward past him, as though expecting someone or something to appear behind. He followed her gaze nervously, but the shadows gave nothing back. He swallowed hard, forcing his shaking hands to work. He had tools in the truck. He could break the cuffs. He could... A sound split the silence above. A thud, slow, heavy, deliberate. Someone or something was walking across the floor of the cabin. John killed his flashlight, plunging them both into blackness. The cellar breathed around him, damp and oppressive. The woman's chains rattled softly as she trembled. Above, the footsteps paused. Then came the drag of something across the floor. Wood groaned. Nails creaked. And then silence again. His throat went dry. Whoever had kept her here, were they still here? He pressed a finger to his lips, gesturing for her to stay quiet. Her wide eyes gleamed in the faint shaft of moonlight filtering through a crack above. For a moment, neither of them breathed. Then, with agonizing slowness, the trapdoor above began to close. The trapdoor closed with a groan that rattled through the cellar like thunder. Darkness swallowed them whole. John's breath turned shallow, his pulse a hammer in his ears. He reached for his flashlight again, but the woman's trembling hand caught his wrist. Her fingers were cold, frail, yet her grip carried urgency. She shook her head violently, eyes wide with a primal warning. Whoever was upstairs, they couldn't know he was here. The air pressed heavier as silence returned. Every second stretched, bloated, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Then came the sound again, footsteps pacing slowly above. Not hurried, not uncertain. They were measured, patient. Whoever walked that floor knew the house like the back of their hand. John crouched lower, pulling the flashlight from his belt with painstaking quiet. He shielded the beam with his palm, letting only the faintest glow reveal the cuffed woman's face. Her lips moved soundlessly, but he could read the words, "Don't go." His jaw tightened. He couldn't leave her. Above them, the footsteps paused. A long, scraping noise followed, the unmistakable drag of a chair across the floorboards. Then silence again. John strained his ears, listening for breath, for movement, for anything. But the stillness that settled was worse than the noise. Whoever it was waiting. He leaned close to the woman. "I'm getting you out of here," he whispered. The words barely sound at all. She blinked, a tear cutting a clean line through the dirt on her cheek. Her lips formed another word. Key. Key, of course. His eyes darted across the stone walls, searching for hooks, for shelves, for anything where a key might hang. Nothing but rust, straw, and shadows. His flashlight beam crawled along the floor, and then he froze. Near the edge of the steps, half buried in hay, something glinted faintly. He reached out and found it. An iron key, heavy, its teeth jagged with age. Hope flickered in his chest as he rushed back to her. The lock resisted at first, clogged with rust, but with a grunt and twist, it clicked open. One cuff fell free, then the other. Her arms dropped like lead, too weak to lift. He slid the key into the shackles on her ankles. Another click, another release. For the first time in God knows how long, she was free. But freedom meant nothing if they couldn't escape. John hooked one of her arms around his shoulder, steadying her frail frame. She sagged against him, bones sharp under her skin. He started toward the stairs, careful not to let the wood groan too loud. At the top, he paused, every sense screaming at him to stop. The trapdoor loomed, a thin line of moonlight outlining its edges. Beyond it, silence. He nudged it open an inch, peering through. The cabin was empty. The chair he'd heard dragged sat dead center, facing the trapdoor as though it had been placed there deliberately, waiting. His stomach turned to ice. He eased the woman up, step by slow step, until they both emerged into the stale cabin air. The night outside whispered through cracks in the wall, cool and damp. Freedom was just beyond the door. He tightened his grip on her and moved toward it, each board underfoot threatening to betray him. The door creaked open. Cold night air rushed in. Relief surged through him like a drug. They stumbled onto the porch, the forest stretching endless and dark before them. He half-carried her down the steps, heart hammering. Vision tunneled on the truck, waiting at the end of the path. Then he saw it. On the hood of his truck sat a lantern, burning with a steady flame. Beneath its glow lay a folded piece of paper. John froze. He hadn't left it there. He approached cautiously, the woman clinging weakly to his side. The paper was thick, yellowed, edges singed as though pulled from fire. His name was written across it in neat, precise letters. Hands shaking, he unfolded it. The bride stays. The land is not yours to claim. Leave or be buried in her place. The lantern flickered as though laughing. John's blood turned to stone. He looked toward the trees, scanning the shadows. But the forest swallowed everything whole. No footsteps, no figures. Just the oppressive silence of something unseen, watching. The woman whimpered softly and he snapped back into motion. He yanked the truck door open, helping her inside. The engine coughed, then roared to life. He slammed it into gear, tires spitting gravel as they tore down the dirt path. Branches clawed at the truck, the forest narrowing like a throat around them. But the deeper he drove, the stranger it became. The path twisted, curved, and yet every turn seemed to loop back on itself. He swore under his breath, gripping the wheel tighter, headlights slicing through endless walls of trees. The woman stirred, whispering words he couldn't understand, low, frantic, in a language older than his ears had ever heard. Finally, the road spat them into a clearing. John hit the brakes, heart stuttering. It was the cabin. The same sagging roof, the same crooked porch, the same upside-down horseshoe nailed to the door. No matter how far he drove, he hadn't left. The woman let out a broken sob. John slammed his fists against the wheel. No, this is impossible. He threw the truck into reverse, then forward, spinning gravel and dirt into the air. But the forest folded back into the same clearing, again and again. Always the cabin waiting, its black windows watching like eyes. And then, slowly, the lantern light appeared again, this time on the porch.